Only in Kentucky can you find a county where Scottish chemists use limestone spring water to engineer the science of modern bourbon on the exact same creek where an enslaved child was born who would eventually win the Kentucky Derby. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky. One county at a time, all 120 of them, and today I'm learning about Woodford County. And I'm smiling, y'all, because this is it. This is my 119th Kentucky County video. I only have Jefferson County left, and for that one, since it's my hometown and I live here, I'm going to be a bit more comprehensive and launch a new series about little neighborhoods to cover the history here of this county. But until then, still have this one. So thanks for watching these videos, and thank you for your patience as I've mispronounced your communities, gotten my facts wrong, completely missed some trivia and didn't include it, or all of the above. I know I'm wrong often, but at the end of the day, I feel like I personally know Kentucky a little bit more now than I did when I first launched this series back in October of last year. So thank you for watching. Hope you follow, and let's just keep learning together. Long before European settlers saw this land, indigenous communities lived along the creek valleys. During the Middle Woodland period between 200 BCE and 500 CE, a community built the Bollock Mound. When University of Kentucky archaeologists excavated the site in 1947, expecting a typical circular burial mound, they found a rectangular sub-mound wooden enclosure measuring nearly 50 feet by 26 feet. Around 1200, Fort Ancient Culture farmers established a village at the Cox site on the Woodford County Ridge. Archaeologists uncovered shell-tampered pottery, stone arrow points, and family burial sites, showing a settled community that farmed corn, beans, and squash along the creek bottoms long before European long hunters entered the region. In November of 1788, the Virginia General Assembly created Woodford County from part of Fayette County. Kentucky was still part of Virginia, making Woodford the ninth and final county formed before Kentucky gained statehood in 1792. At its creation, Woodford was huge, stretching north to the Ohio River, encompassing land that eventually formed 7 other full counties, such as Scott and Franklin. Virginia lawmakers named the county for General William Woodford. Born in 1749, he commanded the 1st Virginia Brigade during the Revolutionary War, fighting at Great Bridge and Monmouth. In 1780, British forces captured him at Charleston, and he died later that year on a prison ship in New York. In June 1792, the Kentucky legislature set the county seat on 80 acres owned by an orphan named Hezekiah Briscoe. The boy's guardian, Marcus Calmes, was a Revolutionary War veteran who served alongside Marquis de Lafayette. Calmes named the town Versailles in honor of Lafayette and the French alliance. And while the French palace is pronounced Versailles, local residents quickly adapted their own pronunciation, Versailles. As the 19th century progressed, the Lexington and Ohio Railroad set out to build Kentucky's first rail line, connecting Lexington to the Kentucky River at Frankfort. On January 31st, 1835, the company bought a 216-acre farm from John Francisco for about $6,500. They platted a town along the tracks and named it Middleway because it sat equidistant between Lexington and Frankfort and halfway between Versailles and Georgetown. Eventually, that would get shortened to Midway, making it Kentucky's first railroad-built town, incorporated in 1846. Because those tracks ran straight through active pastures without fences, early locomotive engineers regularly had to stop the train, get down, open wooden cattle gates to let cows through, and then close them before moving on. A century later, when passenger rail died down, downtown Midway slowed down too. But in the 1970s, shopkeepers formed the Midway Village Guild and restored the historic brick storefronts alongside the tracks. The agricultural wealth of antebellum Woodford County was built on slavery. By 1790, enslaved African Americans made up over a quarter of the county's population, clearing timber, farming hemp and tobacco, laying stone fences, and working the horse farms. In 1860, William Billy Walker was born into slavery at Bosque Bonita, a horse farm owned by Abraham Buford. After emancipation, Walker became a top jockey, riding Bade and Bade into victory in the 1877 Kentucky Derby and spending the rest of his life as a prominent trainer and racing scholar. During the Civil War, Woodford County was pretty divided. When the federal government opened Army enlistment to black men in 1864, Woodford County became a primary recruiting ground for the United States colored troops in the 7th Congressional District. Enslaved men left local farms to enlist, drawing harsh resistance from local slaveholders. In one documented case, an enslaved woman named Patsy lived on a local farm when her husband escaped to join the Union Army. After he was killed at the Battle of Saltville, Patsy's owner beat her severely in retaliation for her husband's service. She took her youngest child in the middle of the night and fled for miles to Lexington for safety. The war split prominent local families as well. John J. Crittenden, born in Woodford County in 1787, served as governor of Kentucky, U.S. Attorney General, and a prominent U.S. Senator. In 1860, he authored the Crittenden Compromise to try to prevent secession. It failed, and his own family split. One son became a Union general, and another Confederate general. Union General John Buford was also born near Versailles in 1826. At Gettysburg on July 1st, 1863, Buford led dismantled cavalry along McPherson's Ridge, holding off advancing Confederate infantry until reinforcements arrived and securing the high ground for the Union Army. Woodford County was also central to the early bourbon history. Around 1810, Elijah Pepper built a small copper still behind the courthouse in Versailles before moving to Glens Creek in 1812. His son, Oscar Pepper, later took over the property and hired Dr. James Christopher Crowe, a Scottish chemist. Working in their distillery during the 1830s and 1840s, Crowe brought scientific measurement to distilling, perfecting sour mash fermentation by using spent mash to control bacteria, and insisted on aging the whiskey in charred oak barrels. In 1874, Colonel E. H. Taylor Jr. rebuilt the Glens Creek plant. French wine merchant Leopold Lebrat and James Graham running it as Lebrat and Graham. Brown-Forman bought the site in 1994, restored the stone warehouses and copper pot stills, and launched the Woodford Reserve brand in 1996. Down the creek, Taylor's old Taylor Distillery was restored as Castle and Key. Thoroughbred breeding developed alongside whiskey there. Around 1790, Scottish immigrant Robert Alexander bought land along Old Frankfort Pike, establishing Woodburn Stud. In 1850s, Woodburn stood the stallion Lexington, who became North America's leading sire 16 times. Woodburn also bred 4 19th century Kentucky Derby winners. Today, major stallion operations cover the county, including Three Chimneys in Midway, Windstar, Lane's End. At Ashford Stud near Versailles, visitors can see Triple Crown winners, such as American Pharoah and Justify. The county's equine reputation was why Queen Elizabeth II stayed at Lane's End as a private guest during her 2007 Kentucky Derby trip. Actor William Shatner also bought a horse farm here in 1985, expanding in 1999 to his 360-acre Belle Reve farm near Versailles, where he has bred American saddlebred horses for decades. Beyond Versailles and Midway, smaller communities carry their own local history. In the southern part of the county, the hamlet of Nonsuch was settled around an 1870s crossroads store. Early farmers gave it that name because they claimed there was no such place with soil that fertile. Near the Kentucky River, Millville grew around early 1800s gristmills along Glens Creek. In eastern Woodford, Pisgah Presbyterian Church was founded in 1784. The church anchored Pisgah Academy, an early private school where Vice President John C. Breckinridge was educated. In 1924, Albert Benjamin Happy Chandler moved to Versailles to practice law. He became Circuit Court Master Commissioner in 1928, later serving 2 terms as Governor of Kentucky and as a U.S. Senator. As Commissioner of Major League Baseball from 1945 to 1951, Chandler approved Jackie Robinson's contract, breaking the sport's color barrier. He's buried in the Pisgah churchyard. More recently, Grammy-winning musician and my favorite artist, Sturgill Simpson, grew up here and attended Woodford County High School. And actually in 2020, local officials added the honorary name Sturgill Simpson Way to Big Sink Road outside the fire station. Simpson at the conference joked the honor was ironic given how many mailboxes he had hit on that road as a teenager. As an aside, if anybody here has a connection to Sturgill or somebody on his crew, I'd love to send him some Kentucky hop water. He's become my favorite artist over the last decade or so, and I just really want to write him a note to say thank you. So, that's Woodford County. What'd I get wrong this time?